Hello everybody. Today we're going to look at some more music by Antonio Vivaldi, and we're going to focus particularly on some of the weird and wonderful instruments that Vivaldi used in addition to the sort of standard instruments of the orchestra. Vivaldi spent much of his career working in Venice, his home city, in a girls' school, the Ospedale della Pietà, where there were some very talented girls that played all sorts of instruments, including some really weird ones like this, the viola d'amore. This instrument is a copy of a viola d'amore that was made by another Italian called Antonio Stradivari. Stradivari lived at the same time as Vivaldi, and this is exactly the kind of instrument that Vivaldi was seen to be playing. It has 6 strings across the top of the instrument that you bow, a bit like a violin, even though in actual fact this is not a member of the violin family, it's a member of the viol family, and you can tell that because of the shape of the shoulders of the instrument at the back. As well as the 6 strings I've got here, there are also, and I don't know whether you can see this, inside, underneath these strings, you've got 6 wire strings that are tuned to the same pitches as these strings here. And the wonderful thing about this instrument, unlike the violin, is that it's tuned to a beautiful chord. So. Here's a little bit from a concerto for viola d'amore that was written for the Pietà by Vivaldi. We're going to take a break from the string instruments and this time look at a wind instrument, the Chalumeau.
Hi, I'm Louise and I play the Chalumeau. Normally I play the clarinet and the recorder, and this is a kind of hybrid of both of them. I'll play you a little bit of the notes. Many notes. So in the Baroque period they had several sizes of them, a bit like recorders. They had the soprano, a bit like that, the alto, a bit longer, the tenor, which is this one, and the bass, which was either really long or curled around like a bassoon. And in Vivaldi's Nisi Dominus he uses the tenor Chalumeau just for one movement, so it's a very special effect that he was trying to make.
So that's the Chalumeau. What other instruments do you think Vivaldi might have written for at the Pietà? What about the chapel? Inside the chapel, the Pietà had a couple of very fine organs. We have an instrument that looks like the sort of standard little Baroque chamber organ, but actually ours is just a little bit different. Here's Rob Howard, who's going to play the organ and tell you a little bit more about it.
This is an Italian organ from the early 18th century. It has with it an open, big 8-foot principal pack. have a pipe half its length, which gives us a brighter sound. It even has a little, even shorter one that goes up even higher. And the quint, which sits somewhere between these two higher pipes, which gives it a little bit more. And alongside these big principal pipes, as we call them, it's got a little 4-foot flute. 4-foot is just an indication of pitch, which is half the length of normal, so it's a little bit higher. So the flute stands on its own. And the last thing it's got is this rather rude sounding trumpet. And these are all from an organ that is actually somewhere in Italy. The point is that we could not transport the whole thing from Istria to here and have it standing in this hall and be perfectly in tune. So what we have instead is the next best thing, which is a little computer that's recorded every single pipe in situ, and we reproduce it through the system in here. So we can take that sound and actually have it in this room today, which is amazing. So this does in fact have no pipes whatsoever. It's got a little computer, and I don't know whether you want to bring it in, but you can see, instead of being ranks and ranks of pipes, we have circuit boards and speakers.
Now for something really, really weird. The violin in Tromba Marina. Nuns were not really allowed to play trumpets because it was deemed unladylike. So from the Middle Ages onwards, they played a very, very strange looking instrument called a Tromba Marina. Vivaldi in the 18th century decided that he was going to go one further and make a sort of adapted violin that sort of had a bit of a raspy, brassy sound, a little bit like the Tromba Marina. Vivaldi's violin in Tromba Marina, you'll notice, only has 3 strings, not the standard 4 you will find in a normal violin. Also, Baroque violins, you might remember, the strings themselves are made of gut. The violin in Tromba Marina has strings made of brass, and that means that it has a much, much louder sound. The other thing to note is that there's a pin stuck through the bridge with a couple of little washers that buzz and vibrate when I draw the bow across the strings. It even has its own concerto. Vivaldi actually wrote 3 of them, but this is one in G major.